Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table. Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. My name's Seth Cressman.
And I'm Ben Brayshaw.
So glad to have you aboard today. We have quite the show. As a matter of fact, I am really excited about this show because it's the giving show. We do it usually once a year, at least once a year.
I like the fact that, Seth, this show seems to kind of end in you giving me something for the holidays. I appreciate that.
I wish I could say the same, but maybe in the future that'll happen too, Ben. Folks, we're so glad you're here with us today. Grab your cup of coffee. If you're driving with us today and you're catching us on the radio, so grateful. Don't stop right now, or at least stop if you need to write down this number. It's 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com, because you're going to either have to come back and listen to this show by podcast to get the information that you need, take some notes, or just call us and talk to us about what your specific situation is, because we are gonna get into the weeds. It's going to happen, and you're going to want to know how to become the best giver possible.
I agree, Seth. I like making people good givers. Good givers. We got options for you guys to give to us too if you want. But in all seriousness, I'm excited about the show too, Seth. I mean, we say that a lot, but this show is one where we get a lot of questions on, because there's a lot of detail to it. We talk about different things. We kind of add and subtract each year because pros and cons and tax codes change and all sorts of stuff. But if you have questions on the show, and I know a lot of people are going to, you give us a call, 855-226-8551. You're happy to go through this stuff, because each person's potential benefit of giving and the giving heart that they have can be maximized across the board in different ways. So I'm excited about that. But before we get into giving, Seth, we've got money in the news.
$5G is where it's at. And we've got everything you need to know about 5G. And guess what? This is no surprise. We're getting a lot of this information from the Wall Street Journal today. And so this is a great article you can reference by Drew Fitzgerald and Timothy Martin and Stu Wu. There's three people involved in this, because it really does a great job of outlining what's going on with the 5G and the conversations. We have a lot of questions about it. Of course, there's the questions for us a lot of the time come back into, how do we take advantage of this for you? And how do we position you if this is a portfolio decision, or if this is, some kind of an investment? How can you take this opportunity to be involved or not?
Yeah, this 5G piece and how to invest. There's so many different companies that are really at the center hub of this thing. There's also some issues around 5G that, whether you're on the kind of the conspiracy theory side of this, where there's a lot of concern about basically the technology of 5G and the speed and the whatever, I don't know, the frequencies and so forth, and how that can physically affect you. That may be a concern, and I know that is a real concern in this world. The other side of it is just, what is the technology and what does it do? I was reading this article, and it's just, we've read a lot of stuff on 5G, Seth, you and I, and the companies that are involved and so forth. But what's really interesting to me was, and I was just looking for it briefly in the article here, was that China is basically it's Huawei Technologies company. Huawei is basically the leader. I don't speak Chinese, so you probably have the pronunciation better. But that being said,
I'm closer than you, so it just works out that way.
But I've got these other two companies down. There's I think it's Ericsson and Nokia. I've got those down. They're big in the supply side of this, but what's really scary is the U.S. House Committee in 2012 labeled the company Huawei or whatever a national security threat, arguing that its alleged state ties could allow Chinese government to use equipment to spy on global networks. End quote. This has created a whole lot of issue. Now, this company has basically, to give you an idea, so China is so far ahead in this, they have 690,000 5G base stations that blast 5G signals.
Mm-hmm.
Guess, Seth, did you see how many the U.S. has? It's only 50,000.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. It's like 50,000 in comparison. They are so far ahead of us here. If you were to take a look, just the percentages, or China has around 7.1% of cellular connections are 5G. We are maybe 2%, maybe.
Yeah.
South Korea has 14.4. A little bit of a bright side there. So yeah, and we're all familiar with T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T. No longer Sprint around anymore, but the transition that they're going through from the 4G to the 5G and that whole thing, to give it a bit of a backdrop, and how long that could take, or how long your 4G is going to be actually something that's usable. Well, it wasn't until 2017 that the 2G network went away for AT&T, and that's hard to believe. I don't even remember 2G, but
2G or not 2G.
Yeah, and I mean, as a consumer, right, this may not even be something that necessarily makes a difference for you. I looked at my phone this last week after I had an update, and I was like, oh, hey, look at that, it says 5G. But I've had the phone for a while now, and Apple just hasn't even released anything until this last month that has 5G capability. So, is it that big of a deal? Because and is that something that we need to take a look at? Is like, wow, this is going to be a major push in terms of the direction that your portfolio might go. You may not see it yet, but there's a build out, there's an infrastructure, and those are some of the plays that are kind of in the forefront of the conversation of that people need to be paying attention to for how they're investing around this. There's a lot of users that are already that are using 5G. We're just not even really familiar or understanding at the moment what kind of a difference does that make. And I like one of the things here that takes this technology on the road, because some people are saying, hey, instead of having a copper connection for my Wi-Fi, or trying to use cable for that, will 5G be able to cover that? And so there's I'm trying to remember her name. She takes her Sprinter van and she goes on the road, and she basically solely uses the 5G connections for virtual reality systems and gaming systems. And the connection there was that you're not going to really experience a whole lot through your phone as far as a difference. Download speeds, yes. Yeah,
because the games that you play on your phone don't require that stuff. Really, I mean, but what's crazy is for our listeners. I mean, probably the majority of our listeners are not probably worried about gaming, I would say, but some of them probably are interested. But let's talk about real time issues. Now, obviously, 5G. I mean, everyone understands 5G is faster than 4G. That's kind of the common understanding. But how fast? A phone downloading a movie, a full-length movie, okay, on 4G would take roughly 6 minutes. Okay, without obviously without whatever glitches maybe your phone might have inside any scenario and so forth. But a 5G can download a full-length movie in 15 seconds. 6 minutes compared to 15 seconds.
Yeah, I got to say that I've got a pretty wide open network that I've got in my house. I think it's like a 500 download or something like that. That's pretty darn fast, or pretty wide. It certainly never seems to be enough. But I download a lot of like audiobooks and stuff like that. And I would kind of wait to hit my Wi-Fi network to do that before. And it's like instantaneous now on my phone. I'm just wherever I'm at, I'm like, audiobook, go. And it is maybe a 2-3 second download for 12 hours of audio.
No, you're right. And the thing is that I think it's 200 million devices have been sold that have 5G capability. So, Seth, you're one of 200 million people, which, when you think about 7 billion people, you're kind of part
pretty
of the
special.
You're kind of part of the minority there. But is 5G the end? It's not. I mean, this article goes deep, Seth. I mean, I was, when I was pretty impressed at the end here, it just talks about 6G,
right? That
they expect sometime in 2030. Okay, and so we just talked about the movie length being, 15 seconds on 5G versus 6 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
They said that 6G is expected to be 100 gigabits per second, or 10 times faster than 5G.
That's incredible, and it's hard to believe that we're talking about something like 2030 here in 2020, and it'll be here before we know it. That's the reality of what's going to happen. That's on a personal level. How about just what are some of the ways that this is going to help support different industries, right? Like oil drilling. I think of these rigs. Now, I read an article the other day on remote oil drilling and how they're actually taking these huge oil platforms and they're starting to test like remote operations on these type of platforms. But what's needed to do that is a significant infrastructure that works at the speed of now, to be able to make all those things work together. So they're using this 5G in kind of like this, like build outs, like these mobile build outs that people can take with them to these different locations and create the 5G network wherever they're at. That was pretty amazing to take a look at. I like the conspiracy theory because I always think that's an interesting thing in the backdrop. But I did like that also the FAA has a guide, or the FCC says that there's really a guideline here that they're not going over the established scientific evidence that has any link between the radiation and cancer or other illnesses. So I'm not going to necessarily put that to bed or put that to rest, but at the moment, that's a bit of a relief.
Well, I think the one piece that's really driving a lot of this is that, they're going to have to canvass because of that point, Seth, and the radiation and the concern. And if you're just listening to us or just jumping in here, you're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551, and we are talking about 5G wireless. And as we're kind of going through this process here and understanding 5G, the canvassing of these antennas, Seth, is phenomenal. They have to put these things, because of the low level frequency, they have to put more antennas all over the place. And they're talking about telephone poles, they're talking about street lamps, they're talking about all that. And they're saying that, companies like, and I'm not sure if it's Comcast or Verizon or whoever, but they're talking about different companies who are providing home internet to totally get rid of the fiber optics and go entirely wireless off of your local light pole. I mean, it's, that's going to be your internet and your excessive device. I mean, so those are things to really think about. The Wi-Fi in your house, unless you're super remote, it may be gone at some point in time. It may just be outside.
Wow. Well, I know, Hillsborough is actually gone to, which is where I live, is gone to like a citywide Wi-Fi, which is pretty cool. It's kind of a nice little rollout there that they've done. But so we did you actually talk about how Huawei creates the devices?
No.
And the 5G, like they're the largest manufacturer basically of the 5G devices. I mean, that's what China has made this a huge initiative. They were way behind on 4G. Now 5G is their big thing that they've really made a push for. And Huawei is the company that has created the majority of these towers that are out there being used for 5G. So the concern there is one that's legitimate, which is, what does China have a backdoor into 5G? And so one of the things that I think was really great was that was recognized that there's this potential, and we are in a place where cyber threat is very real from Iran, Russia, China. These are the major players in this area. But if there's a control over our network, what could they possibly do? So creating that line in the sand is one of the things that the administration is focused on, and done, I think, a really good job. And maybe that's part of the case for us not quite being at the level that China is today. Do you think we as a country, as a nation, are going to stand by and necessarily wait for things to roll out? I don't think so. I think we're really an innovative country that's going to go ahead and push that initiative forward, and that's what everything behind the scenes looks like currently.
Well, you're right, and that's definitely going to be an issue around 5G. Is that we don't ever like to be second fiddle, but I think there's been some intentional delay on the idea that there is some potential radiation and frequency stuff going on, and we've kind of taken the approach of it's better to do more towers and lower frequency to meet the FCC standards, and I think that's probably part of it.
Yeah, and one of the challenges with that happens to be the 4G network already kind of having a bit of an interference with that 5G as well.
Yeah, I was going to say too, Seth, it's interesting about how they feel. I mean, it's probably the last piece, because 5G is definitely an investable scenario, and there's lots of ways to get involved in this. That's something that we have, aggressively done ourselves in our company. So, but they're talking about virtual reality and some of the AR applications who have had to rely heavily on the internal technology to run some of the pieces. And, virtual reality and all of those pieces of, even running the oil drilling systems and even, electric running cars and all of that kind of stuff. They definitely believe 5G can get us there. A doctor could be doing surgery remotely. All of that is a reality in 5G, is basically what it looks like. But they said that because 5G is so fast, they're going to have to depend less on infrastructure locally. So like when you play games and you do things, like you have to have hard drives that run software. Like you're always doing big downloads. I see my kids, they download a game, it takes 10, 15 minutes. I mean, it really does. I mean, it's a process. With 5G, they will have to download less. There'll be less demand on the components locally, which then makes gaming remotely, I think, a potential investment scenario as well. I don't know.
So many opportunities to discuss and take a look at further. It's a great article, and thank you so much for all three coming together to do a little bit of a deeper dive and take a look at some of the scenarios and more of the coverage, because we get a lot of these things kind of trickling in, and there's this piece and that piece, but this really puts it together nicely. So thank you so much. You know what? You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551. And this is the Giving Show. That's the best part about today, is that we're going to be talking about what you can do in very, very small ways. Everybody can be a giver and philanthropic. And then we're going to take that into we're going to take it into the weeds, folks. And so you're going to want to grab a pen and paper. You're going to want to make sure that you write down the phone number, 855-226-8551. Give us a call about your scenario so that you can start to plan towards the ultimate path for you in giving. You're listening to Money on Tap. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Ben Brayshaw, one of the co-hosts of Money on Tap. If you have questions when it comes to your retirement and are looking for a personalized solution, contact us at Brayshaw Financial Group. In today's volatile stock market, we can help you plan to find your successful retirement solution. Am I saving enough? Am I saving into the right places? Do my investments match my appetite for risk? Do I have a tax strategy that is going to help me keep more of what I earn? How can I maximize my Social Security income? If you are like most people, you are getting closer and closer to your retirement and may be wondering if you're taking the right steps. If you're in retirement, you may be wondering, am I maximizing my income while preserving my estate and caring for my family? We talk about all things financial in what we call three-dimensional investing, putting a plan around your financial future. If you feel that now is the time to start getting the answers to some of these questions for your own situation, give us a call at Brayshaw Financial Group at 855-226-8551. Headquartered in Bedford, New Hampshire, we have offices throughout New England and across the country. We would love the opportunity to show you how we can help. There's absolutely no cost or obligation just to meet with us, and we welcome you to our office. Call us at 855-226-8551.
More Money on Tap in just a moment. On this Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, we take a look back to a previous program where Ben and Seth offered some insights into some great places to retire. Here is a highlight from that show that focuses on a pretty good international deal.
Seth, we've done a lot of shows on places to retire throughout the world and in the United States. We've done all sorts of different things. People have called us about, hey, where should I be retiring? Or what state? Is it Florida or Arizona? And what are the pros and cons to that? And we've done stuff on that. We've talked to people about that. But this is kind of a different slant of an article, and not necessarily worthy of a show, but probably worthy of a conversation for someone who's in this area. But Italy has said, we're just going to do a flat tax for anybody who wants to come live here, essentially. It's 100,000 of their currency, which I don't know what the actual currency exchange is on that. But currently, Italy's tax rate's 43%. So if you're making $500,000 a year, or you own a business, $1 million a year, you don't want to give away 43% of your money, but now you just got to clear 100,000.
Yeah, so that's the income tax on all income generated outside of the country, right? So if you have your income domiciled outside of Italy, it's a flat tax, 100K or not? Yeah, 100. It is still 1,000 because it's a euro. It doesn't matter. 100,000 doesn't change necessarily because it's a dollar or a euro. It's still 100,000.
Right. In the same currency exchange.
Correct. Right. Yeah. So, anyways, that 100,000 is capped, and so that could be a huge play if you have income outside of Italy, right? Now, the income inside of Italy is that 43%. That's pretty notable and high. But the great thing about this solution is you can figure out a way to get to create your income outside of Italy and cap that tax rate, which could become incredibly low compared to what you're doing right now.
Yeah, basically, I kind of did some rough math, but you're looking at about, depending on the state you live in, whether you have state income tax or not, and New Hampshire and Oregon happen to be two states that don't, so that's kind of unique. But if you live in some of these other states, like Massachusetts or any of the other ones that's where you kind of get hit. But, somewhere between $275,000 and $300,000 of income, you're breaking even with a move to Italy.
What was that again?
$275,000 to $300,000 of income. You're breaking even with moving to Italy, almost somewhere.
Yeah.
So if you want,
I love it. It's a dream come true
for some. Right now, not necessarily.
Gosh, I'm already like the last scene of Gladiator, floating through the fields of Italy with my hands across the wheat.
Well, let's jump past Gladiator.
I'm not dead.
Let's jump past Gladiator here. But the UK is interesting because they actually had a lot of people moving from the United Kingdom to Italy, because with that scenario, Italy's tax is basically almost half as well on income. So people have been moving to Italy because that has really become a tax haven.
Plus, I'd rather live in Italy than England, anyways.
I don't know. I'm not sure that I would agree with that.
You don't think so?
No, I don't know. I've been to England and I loved it. So,
but you love pizza too.
Yeah, sometimes. The article's kind of interesting though, Seth. I really did find it interesting that it jumped into 12 other countries that have a 0% tax rate, including Monaco. They talked about St. Kitts, Nevis. They went through all these different things. What's interesting about St. Kitts was that all you have to do is have a minimum investment with them of $115,000.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Then at that point in time, you become a citizen or citizenship of some sort, and then you get access to 156 other countries. I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but it's a little close to some concerning countries off the shore of South America. But it seems to be safe enough, so it's definitely an option.
Thanks for joining us for this Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, with great tips from the pros in three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. Now here's more Money on Tap with Seth and Ben.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Today, we are talking about the Giving Show.
No, don't turn us off just because you heard giving. We're going to make this fun. We're going to make this something that's maybe even make some people some money.
So Ben has already solicited you and solicited me for extra giving. I love that about you, Ben. Never going to miss an opportunity. So, what's kind of interesting to me is like there's this idea of giving. There's this philanthropic idea, but there's so many different ways to do it. Okay, and there's so many other benefits that people don't even really count when they start going down this road of charitable mindedness or
you're dead on. Yeah, the philanthropic. I ask people all the time, "Are you philanthropic?" And they're like, "Well, it's like I'm not sure that I'm a. I mean, I do things, and so forth, and then I do meet people that are, they're intense givers. I mean, they've got it all down. And then you have the person who's kind of mainstream, who would be, I give to my church, I give to the food pantry, I cover those bases, and they really are, sincere. So there's kind of like, I would say 3 categories. Like you're all in, it's 100%. You've got the person who's kind of going down the middle. They're super engaged. And you have the person who says, well, I give when I hear there's a real issue or there's a need and so forth, but it's not a primary focus. And those are all okay standards. There's no judge here in that piece. But the thing about giving that people don't understand is that it's one of the things that creates the most wealth for some people out there. I mean, you look at like these, you look at Bill Gates, you look at these different, philanthropic, the Gates and Melinda Foundation. All these things, these are ways these people create wealth. Wealth is obtained and created through giving because there's all sorts of benefits on the tax side that help people a lot. And I'm excited to go through that because even if you're not necessarily driven by some philanthropic scenario, it's okay because we know there's things you'd probably give to if you felt like you had the ability to do it and it benefited you as well. And that's what I'm excited. That's the portion of the show that I'm really excited for, Seth.
So let's dive in. Before we get into all the tax incentive mindset things that you need to be paying attention to or want to participate in, what are some of the things like right here, right now that you may not even realize if you are a giver that you're getting out of this? And one of those is that it is your body, and your stress level is one of the things that they found gets reduced through giving. You live longer. And that was Queensland University of Technology that brought that to us. This is all cited stuff that you can go take a look at for yourself. American Journal of Public Health. You can boost your mood in a 2007 study. They used brain imaging technology on 19 women to see how certain regions were activated by their whether they kept $100 or gave it to the food bank. So there's all lower your blood pressure, all sorts of these things that happen within you as you become a giver. And that's really cool, right? You wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there's a ton of health benefits. We did a show on that a long time ago. I remember it was years and years ago that we talked about all the many health benefits that drive well-being and the longevity in life was phenomenal. I can't even remember what the details on that, but that was so many benefits to giving and being charitably minded.
So what are some fun ways to give? Because with people, we understand you can have a really, really tight budget, and this may not be something that you're listening to the show thinking there's anything that you can do. We get it. You might feel bad. There might be some kind of guilt in the background that's like, gosh, I really wish I could, or if only I had, whatever the dollar amount is that you have in your mind that you're thinking that you need to be a giver. Frankly, you don't even need that necessarily. For one, staying within, having a healthy body and doing what's good for you. There's an app called Charity Miles, and I use this regularly when I'm going out for a walk, or you can do it when you're shopping, whatever. If you're out and you're walking, you can go ahead and click on this Charity Miles and go hit start, and it will donate because of your physical activity to a charity. And not every charity's on there, but there's a lot of really great charities there and partnerships there for you to go ahead and take a look at. There's Amazon Shop. Anybody that is shopping on Amazon, you go to smile.amazon and you can select several charities to be giving to. So there's not a whole lot that you necessarily have to do to change your current behavior. As a matter of fact, you can encourage and strengthen some of the activity that you want to participate in, like running or biking or some good healthy activity, that's a great way to even encourage you to do more of that. So as you're kind of setting some of these goals for yourself in this next year, think about those things.
So as we dive into the pieces here on giving, there's a couple things that have really moved the dial for how people do giving. One of the first things is that we have capped the automatic deductions. So there's always been a cap on them. They were $6,000 individual for deductions on your tax returns. So if you didn't have anything to itemize and you were an individual person, $6,000 was an automatic deduction you got. And unless you went over that $6,000, like $7,000 or $8,000 in deductions, did you actually get to deduct any more than $6,000? So $6,000 was free. And it was $12,000 for married filing jointly. Under the Trump tax code, he actually doubled both of those deductions, which, for a lot of families in the middle class and people who rented apartments and things like that, this was a huge tax savings because there was not a lot of deductions. People didn't have, mortgage and interest deductions and all that stuff. But that has doubled. It went $12,000 to individual, and then it went to $24,000 for married filing jointly. So to simplify this, if you're married filing jointly, which is probably the majority of listeners on some level, you get an automatic $24,000 deduction on your tax return. And in order to get more deductions than $24,000, you have to have deductions all the way up to $24,000 plus more than that. So for a lot of people, they don't even go over that.
Because that's a lot of change. How many middle class families do you think of are hitting that $24,000 deduction level?
Yeah, there's not a lot of people. Matter of fact, the entire I think it was like 17 or 21%, I can't remember what the number was, used to itemize all their taxes, and by this standard, and this new standard, I think it was 21% of people itemized. It dropped to less than 7% of people itemized once they did this. That's crazy.
That is. And we've been challenged in this idea too, where maybe the incentive isn't there to be charitable minded, because why itemize, why go and donate, or why be actively pursuing ways to find deductions to lower your taxes if it's already given to you.
Right. So Seth, to add what I think might be some more clarity for people is that, let's say the government, you're married filing jointly, you get a $24,000 deduction, and let's say you looked at your actual deductions between mortgage interest and all the different things that you're deducting, and your charitable giving. Let's say you give $5,000 to church, and you gave $1,000 to charity, and you're at like, I don't know, $15,000 of total deductions between health and everything. You're not at 24 yet. So in order for you to actually get any more deductions than 24, the $15,000 you've gotten, the government says, hey, we're still going to give you $9,000 more in deductions. So unless you have more than $9,000, don't itemize because it's not worth it.
Yeah, save yourself the time.
Right. And so for a lot of people, and a lot of charities were very nervous about this because they felt like this would not encourage people to give. This was a major concern in the charitable world. So let's go through the idea of giving and what options exist for you here, because when you give out of the goodness of your heart, it's also you want to get the credit for it, right? I mean, that's kind of the piece here that everyone's looking for. So I'm going to talk about two ways that people can give naturally inside their life today while alive, while just everyday giving, and get at least the additional or the same credit or better as we get into it. You can reach us at 855-226-8551. Again, that's 855-226-8551. Now, the first scenario in giving, okay, and saying, hey, listen, I got these deductions and I want to try to get over is, if you're retired, the number one way to give is to give directly out of your IRA. That means, and this is to be very clear, give your RMDs, give whatever you don't want to. Like if you want to write a church a check for $500, it's better to call your financial advisor and have them give the $500 directly from your IRA as a retired person over 59 and a half directly to the church. And the reason for that is If you take in the income of $500 and then write the church a check, you're not going to get the deduction for the $500, but you will have to pay tax on the income, because the deduction would be, in that scenario, still underneath that $24,000 limit. If you give it directly out of your IRA as an RMD or whatever, qualified charitable distribution is what it's called, a QCD, you can then not have to declare that income, which is the equivalent of getting the deduction. It's just the reverse of it. It's like, I'm not declaring the income because I'm not going to get the deduction. Now you're not going to declare the income, so you don't have the tax on that.
So you're going to give. Why not get the credit, right? Now, if you're not at that point in time where you're taking you're taking money out of your IRA for retirement, okay, that's a given. That's not going to be your scenario here, but that's a beautiful way. It does add maybe a step in the process, some thoughtfulness, which is also really good for you to do. There's the other way that we've talked about really structuring that giving is the donor advised fund, right? So donor advised funds, these are fantastic ways for people to give, and it's they have a lot of, I guess, width as far as what they can do. You can take an asset that you have that's appreciated, and so often there are these assets that you'll have, and it's either some kind of a stock, it can be real estate, it can be all these different places that you've accumulated assets, and it really has appreciated. And you can go ahead and gift that into a donor advised fund. Okay, now the donor advised fund will go ahead and continue to gift on an annual basis, just like you were planning to do all along. Every year you've got your charities that you want to go ahead and gift to. But what you get to do in this scenario is you get to take that deduction all this year. So you can kind of lump sum and front run all of those deductions that you've been hoping to grab year over year. And so what that does is it creates this ability for you to get over that hurdle of that $24,000 or whatever your current tax hurdle is, to get the deductions and take advantage of the code to lower your taxes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think this is one of those complicated scenarios, and I don't know if this is going to make any more sense to our listeners, and I would encourage people to call us if you haven't ever heard of a donor-advised fund, but this is the way it works. You get a $24,000 automatic deduction, and let's say you're at $15,000, and every year you give to charities another $15,000. So, normally, if 15 plus 15 puts you at 30 and you get 24. So you're going to get an extra $6,000 deduction on that charitable contribution of $15,000. So it will carry you over. But what you could do is, if you know you're going to give to a specific charity or charities over the next 3 to 5 years, you could then say, I'm going to give, and I have cash, I'm going to give $45,000 to a donor advised fund this year. And I'm going to have $15,000 each year go to those charities over the next 3 years. And those charities will get the money correspondingly. Instead of you having just, a $15,000 charitable contribution this year on top of your standard 15 that you would normally have to get you to 30, you'd be actually adding another $30,000. So you'd be adding that $45,000 of giving this year all at once, putting you way over the 24, okay? And so now you got huge deductions, and you're getting every penny of the deductions that you'd have in the next couple years this year. And then the following years, you don't actually give anything to charities, even though the donor advised fund is doing it for you. And you're getting that full $24,000 deduction for free. It's great. It's a phenomenal way of giving. And for people who have the funds and know they're going to do it, it's a wonderful way. Even if you don't give that much, sometimes for some people, it only puts them over $1,000 or $2,000, and they have the ability to do this on that automatic deduction inside their taxes. It might be an extra few $1,000.
You guys, you're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Hey, right before we go, need to let you know that you're listening to The Giving Show. Okay, this is our best within an hour job that we can possibly bring to you. Some of the techniques and some of the opportunities that you have to be a significant impactful giver. But some of the things that you also want to make sure of is that where you're giving is using the money wisely. And so many people are getting calls today from all sorts of charity organizations because it's that time of year, and they don't know that they have a resource out here, charitynavigator.org. CharityWatch.org or GiveWell.org will help you make sure that not only where you're giving does have the qualified charity status of a 501c3, that nonprofit status, but it will tell you how and rank them and tell you how well they're actually using those monies. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Money on Tap. We'll be right back. Hi, my name is Seth Crustman, partner with Brayshaw Financial Group and one of the co-hosts of Money on Tap. One of the biggest concerns and largest expenses people face today is taxes. Without thoughtful planning, taxes can destroy future retirement dollars, eliminating the possibility of a timely retirement or dreams of what you want retirement to look like. If you're like most people, you're getting closer and closer to retirement, and you may be wondering if you're taking the right steps. Will my income be enough? Will rising taxes force me to give up my dreams? How does inflation factor into all of this? These are real concerns, and you're not alone. Putting a plan around your financial future is what we do. If you have questions when it comes to your financial security, and if you're looking for a personalized solution, contact us at Brayshaw Financial Group, 855-226-8551. It's time for you to start getting answers to your questions. Headquartered in Bedford, New Hampshire, Brayshaw Financial has offices across the country. We'd love the opportunity to show you how we can help. There's absolutely no cost or obligation to meet with us. Call us at 855-226-8551. 855-226-8551.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben and Seth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. You are listening to The Giving Show, and we've had a lot of fun so far talking about different benefits of gifting and being charitably minded, and maybe some things that you just weren't aware of. And there's so many different ways to give out there, and we're touching on a few of the kind of some of the tools of the trade as financial planners that we probably have a whole lot more conversation than you will around the dinner table, and we want to bring to you a couple of places where people really have significant impact in not only gifting and philanthropy, and also influencing their taxes. That's a huge part of what it is that we focus on here, is how do we help you change your taxes and pay less tax. And it's a plan. It's a part of, it's an initiative that starts with you and a desire to help or lower your taxes. And that's the conversation we're having here. So without too much further ado, and there's going to be a couple other things that we're going to cover out there as well as just, current rates of gifting and some other strategies as well. But the two that we really wanted to spend a little bit more time here on is the charitable remainder trust, and charitable lead trust. Ben, just quick, can you give us a couple of the overview on those two?
Yeah, these are extremely complicated. The charitable remainder trust is really commonly used, or has been commonly used for many, many years. And the idea is that you give money to a charity, but you don't want it to go in their hands today because you need the money to retire off of or something along those lines. And so it's called the remainder goes to the charity. So after you've collected your income, that remainder would go to the charity after your passing. Now, that has become recently less popular, not because people don't like the idea of it. It's just that because there's this complicated thing called the AFR rate and AFR, and that's the applicable federal rate. The AFR rate is very, very low, and the lower that AFR rate is, the lower the percentage of the deduction you get on your taxes when you do a charitable remainder trust. So a lot of charitable organizations are not doing that. The AFR rate is like it's like 0.04. It's or 0.4. It's crazy low. I mean, it's ridiculously low. Honestly, I've never seen it this low before. It's 0.04, and so that's a little nuts, right? And so your deduction on something like that would be, probably in the like 10% range or something like that for, somebody 5, 10, 15%. It's going to be really, really low. If you gave $1 million, you're not going to get a lot to write off. The lead trust is something where you're giving to the charity first. That's where you're saying, hey, I'm going to put this money in this trust, and I want the annuity portion, and don't get scared by the word annuity because that's just meaning the guarantee to pay out of this trust to the charity for 10 or 15 or 20 years. And then when that trust is up, whatever time period you chose, whatever remains in that trust would go back to you as the giver. So I tell people sometimes it's kind of like lending your money to a charity. It's like, hey, I'll put $1 million in here, charity, take your income for the next 20 years, and this is what it's going to be, 5% or 6% or something like that, $50,000 a year. And then when it's said and done, whatever that $1 million is worth, I get back. Now, currently today, if you were to do a 5% donation to a charity in a charitable lead trust, I have this number right in front of me, and you did it for 20 years and then said after 20 years, whatever's there is mine, you get a 96% deduction.
Wow.
So you put $1 million in there, we're talking about $960,000 ordinary income tax deduction. That's an enormous deal. But you're also giving the money away for 20 years. And if you put $1 million in there and the trust only does 5% net or 6% net or something like that, you're going to basically get your $1 million back 20 years. Now, you've gone backwards in value, but what did that deduction mean to you today? How much did that save to you today? There's other pieces to this trust that a lot of people don't understand, which is the income that goes to the charity would be pushed out to you as income during those next 20 years. So you'd be taking on that income slowly yourself to pay the taxes. But at the end of 20 years, whatever's in that trust is yours tax-free. It's not a bad deal. And we do these pretty often for people who get buyouts and private equity, and there's a lot of different pieces there. And people who are charitably minded love this stuff. I mean, you're just washing a lot of taxes out. So what does that mean? If you do half the number of years, you're looking at about half that deduction. That's a 50% deduction on ordinary income tax. that could put you in a totally different tax bracket. That could do a lot of things for you.
Are we going to go into the charitable remainder trust? You briefly covered it, and really it's not necessarily like because of the AFR rate, it doesn't really hold a lot of value in the structure right now. Just a couple of things I think that are important to talk about, though. Yeah. Okay. So there really is a couple of types of charitable remainder trusts. Okay. So there's the charitable remainder annuity trust, or a CRAT. All right. That's distribute a fixed annuity each year. And then there's the charitable remainder unit trust, or the CRUT, that distribute a fixed annual percentage. And that's based off of the trust assets. Now, CRATs don't allow for additional contributions. All right. But the CRUTs do. Okay, so those are some considerations as well. And these are really irrevocable, is one of the things that to understand. Like, you just don't go up and start modifying these things after you've put it into place. Okay, it's there, it's done. And so there's some permanence there that you need to really understand around this giving strategy. And even though we might have this preference today of what the landscape looks like, as we've taken a look back at some of the shows we've done on this in the past, it's amazing to me to see how it has also changed. So from year to year, this is something that we also want to take a look at with you and see, hey, what is the landscape currently? What is the best option for you? What works for you? And your mindset is a big part of that as well.
Seth, there's one other thing out there too. And you and I were chatting about this the other day for a client, is that legacy trust program that we've done. And, the legacy trust program, it kind of is a charitable remainder trust in its own way. It's a completely different program, and you give the money away, and it does give you income. But it's a multi-generational program that's like lock, stock, and barrel, one program. You put your money in, and it will pay income to you, your wife, your kids, your grandkids, whatever you choose. And based on ages and time periods, it'll pay out for a very long time. And it does give you an upfront deduction, and then the remainder would go to the charities. But that legacy trust piece where you create a very simplified version for somebody who's not looking to do a lot of money, doesn't want a lot of trust work, the legacy trust program is it's kind of like buying the app on your phone. It's already ready to go. You install it and boom, it's done. It's not your own, you don't have to write your own trust. The crats and the crots, you really got to get into. You're hiring an attorney, the charitable lead trust, the charitable remainder trust. You're hiring your own attorney. You are doing this. You're doing this yourself. You're very detailed and so forth. The legacy trust is kind of you're buying it off the shelf, and it's set up for multi-generational. People love that, and they can keep doing them. You can buy them on the open market. There's a lot of different pieces there that you can do. And if that's a question for you, you're looking for something simplified, we have that scenario too.
In summation and conclusion, we have a couple of other things that we want to these are some ABC pieces here. Take a look at your company that you're working with. And over here, it's Intel, right? They've got a lot of matching donations that they'll do. See if you have some matching dollars available for you. And a lot of there's other places to look if you don't currently work for a company that's doing that as well. There are other organizations that are looking for people that are givers and want to match those donations in a direction. So maybe take a look at the landscape there. Have some more impact. So non-cash donations. This might be your car situation that you've got, an old car that you just want to give away. A couple of things there. You may want to go ahead and just sell that for cash because the cash value and then give the cash because the cash value may be higher than what they're giving you in the donation world. That's been something we've seen in that as well. A life insurance, unneeded life insurance. Last show, we were talking about your jalopy of a life insurance and a 1035. Maybe it's just a life insurance policy that you're like, I don't even need this thing anymore. Well, you can go ahead and gift that life insurance. And there's a couple of ways to do that. So give us a call, and we're here to help you with those things. So what else is there? Well, a lot of grandparents and parents like to give to generations. Okay, and there used to be a $14,000 a year ability for you to gift cash to as many individuals as you desired, but that's gone up to $15,000. So that's nice that that's changed.
Matter of fact, Seth and I are available for this. If gifting is in your heart, and it's not to your kids or grandkids,
One more plug.
Well, no, I mean it is a plug, but not really. But I think, Seth, you're right. I mean, it's one of those things where if you want to gift, it's not just limited to your kids and your grandkids. You can give $15,000 to anybody you want, and mom and dad can both give $15,000 to son A or daughter B, so they can give $30,000.
Hopefully that's not your name.
No, that's not my name. Without creating, a deduction off your estate tax gifting rules, which is great.
Correct. That's one of those things that you can start to do today to really start to set up your family moving forward. There's a lot of variations of that and reasons for and how-tos around that as well. So give us a call, 855-226-8551. Love to help you out with more information and really a better, fuller representation of what we've talked about today in our giving show and how that can work best for you. You've been listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. You can also find us at Facebook. We're at /3D Investing. We're also on Twitter at BFG_LLC. And as always, you can also find us at yourmoneyontap.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for liking our podcast. We appreciate you, and we can't wait to make it a great day and a great life with you here at Money on Tap.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.
Well, bye.